Hey everybody, let's get started. Hope everyone's having a good Friday and a good week. I'm still a bit sleepy, but I think I'll be fine for the stream. So today we're going to be working on taking a break from our large project to do what I like to call a walkthrough, where I basically take some game development topic and we'll try and figure out how to do it in a 2-hour stream. So the topic for today is using Lua in Unity, and Lua is a scripting language that, well, the actual language itself, it's really fun to use, but there's nothing that special about it. But the cool thing is that if you implement it into Unity, you can actually load scripts at runtime, which is perfect for modding systems, and also you can change the way objects work without having to recompile the game, so that's really nice for patching. Let's see. Another useful thing that could just help just with general development is that it helps enforce a separation between like the level design code and then the actual game engine code, which can help make things easier to debug. So Unity doesn't have built-in support for Lua. You have to use something called Moonsharp, which we'll set up right now. And it's actually very easy to get working. You just want to go to the Asset Store, which if you don't know how to open it, you go to Window, then Asset Store, and then just search for Moonsharp, and it should be the first thing that comes up. Okay, so we'll download it here. Oh, it's gonna make me sign in. Alright, so just 1 second. I thought I was already signed in. I guess it logged me out when I closed Unity last night. Alright. Alright. Now signed in and it's downloading, right? No, not yet. Okay, so you can see that was very quick, and then you prepare the package. Okay, now this dialog just shows you all the files that are inside that Lua package. Normally you just want to include everything because you don't really know what the script needs. But yeah, it looks kind of intimidating. But it's just to make sure you know what's inside. So you just click import. Then Unity will do some work to pull it into your game. You can do it, Unity. Alright, there we go. Okay, so now we can see it created this new plugins folder, and that's where all the Moonsharp scripts are. Now, the plugin folder is a little special. If you're used to using Unity, you might have seen a plugins folder or an editor folder, and we can see that if we reload the Visual Studio project, that the plugins is its own special project in the Visual Studio solution, and that's because any code that's in a plugin folder is compiled first before any code in just the normal folder. And that can be useful sometimes because you want to make sure that everything in the plugins is ready before the rest of the code is compiled. I don't know if it matters so much in the case of Moonsharp, but I think for safety, they just went ahead and put it in the plugins folder regardless. But it's already there, so nothing to really worry about. Okay, so with Lua, we're going to try to implement a branching dialogue system. So to do that, I've already prepared some graphics, so we're going to just use a normal canvas. We'll use the UI system for this because it'll be just completely 2D. Okay, so I remember 128. Okay, and then inside we'll want to have an image, which we can have the background. Okay, so that's quite a bit bigger, so we'll go ahead and make sure it's... Okay, so you can press Alt and Shift, and then when you click on this little square, that helps you set the positions of a UI element, and we want it to stretch to the bounds of the screen. So if you press Alt Shift and then click there, then you can see that all points are now bound to the edges of the screen. So that's good for that. Okay, and another thing we'll want, let's name this background so we stay organized. And then for our next image, we'll want to have the dialog box prepared here. And so the image type will definitely be slice, so that way when we resize it, the borders stay the same size. Okay, so let's go ahead and place it, we'll anchor it to the bottom. And so if we put it at position 0, it should be centered. Let's put it 32 pixels. Okay, well our pivot is in our center, so we want to move our pivots to the bottom. So by doing that, we just put the Y position as 1. And then you've got to reposition this. Okay, or maybe 0, I got it backwards. Okay, yeah, that's what I wanted. I wanted it to be 32 pixels from the bottom. Or 32. I don't think this is actually pixels, but 32 units. Okay, so let's just set some size and see how it looks. It's a bit tall, actually. It's looking a little better, but I guess we can mess with it later. Okay, and now we'll want to create our text object. Okay, like before, I prepared a font. Okay, so let's make it bigger and change the color. Okay, so this will be the dialog box. Okay, by anchoring or parenting the dialog box to the text object, that means that the rect transform here will always match the dialog boxes. So again, we want it to stretch to the extents of the dialog box. We'll press Alt Shift and then stretch both ways. And then so we can have a little inset. We can move this left and right and put, I don't know, 8 units, that's too small, so let's try 16. Looks a little better. And you can see that the little blue circles are kind of, that's where the text will wrap. So if we, let's see. If we just put in some text, text, try to say that 3 times fast, you can see it'll wrap correctly. But still, I think it needs a little more room, so let's try that. Okay, it's actually looking a little fuzzy. Oh, I know what I forgot to do. In the canvas, you want to make sure you put pixel perfect, and that should make things look better. it doesn't. Okay, there we go. It updated now. It looks much better. Okay, no, we don't want to mess with that. Okay, so let's see. So this is like the basics of the basics. We'll want to have, like, I don't know, buttons down here and maybe a portrait. We'll get to that kind of stuff if we have time. We can close that. Okay, so we set up Moonsharp and the graphics. Okay, so now we want to execute a hello world script in Lua. And what I mean by hello world is that's just programming lingo for this is a script that basically just prints out something simple. Oh, hi funny guy, quick question. Love the stream. When integrating Lua, will it work? Play nice with all the Unity libraries? Pretty much from my experience, it works really well, especially with Moonsharp. You barely have to do anything to pass transforms and things back and forth. So I would say yes, it does work well. Okay, so let's get to some scripting. Oh. Okay. So we'll just have a basic, let's just call this the Lua environment, and this will hold what we need to store Lua scripts for Unity to be able to call whenever it wants. Oh no, this is going to be a mono behavior, so we do public start. Never worked with Lua primary C#. Yeah, I like both languages a whole lot, and it's really nice to be able to mix them together because they both have their strengths. Okay, so Moonsharp. We can look here. I have the page up. Okay, so here is basically what we're going to do. We're going to have this script code, and then we'll actually get Moonsharp to compile it for us. So let's see. I'll have the private script. We've got to use the Moonsharp interpreter. Environment. Okay, and then when this mono behavior starts, we'll just create the new script. Okay, and you don't have to. Well, we'll come back to that. The constructor, you can just leave it empty for now. Okay, and then we'll create, again, just a test script to run. Okay. Now, the cool thing in C# is if you prepend this @ symbol, that means that this string can be multiple lines and it will ignore escape sequences, so it's good for trying out stuff like this. So basically we just want to say print we still gotta escape the double quote though. Oh wait, that doesn't even work. No, it doesn't. I forget if Lua can use single quotes, and it's okay, I was hoping that they would use a quotation mark here, but We don't really even need this actually. Let's do it this way. So basically we just want to print out hello world. Okay, so now we can do environment. Thanks for the follow, funny guy. And then run. Or what is the function again? Do string. Okay. Come on. Okay, and now this will run this code. We'll see that we'll get an error, but let's go ahead and try it out. So we'll create an empty class, and we'll just call this scripts. Okay, so we got a Lua environment, and now when I run this or play this scene, oh, nothing happens. That's a little strange. Thought that it would. Okay, I guess Moonsharp has a handler that helps you not get exceptions. Let me look at exception handling. Okay, error handling. Yeah, I would definitely throw something if something happened. Okay, but anyway, there's a way that you can add your own print object, or not print object, but print function into Lua. All you really have to do is say script default options debug print, and then you get a string, and then we'll use Unity's debug console. Oops. Okay, and now I'm pretty sure this hello world will show up down here in the debug. Okay, Unity's making a liar of me. That's obviously something is not compiling. Let's see. So let's just debug something here to make sure this is even loading. Okay, and that does work. So why is it not actually doing my script like I wanted? Oh, okay, it's because it's returning this print as a function. So it doesn't actually run this right away, I guess. So let's try it now. So, if you're familiar with Lua, the variables are untyped, meaning that basically any variable can have any type in it at once. And the way that Moonsharp handles that is with these dynamic values. And so, you can see if we get a dynamic value in our code, and we look inside all the variables it has, you can get a boolean function, and there's numbers and strings and everything. So we know that this will return a function, so we'll get that value and then just call it. And now I think this print will show. Either that or we'll get some errors. So let's see. Okay, null reference exception. Interesting. Let's print debug log. And we'll get the type, which will tell us what type is in this dynamic value. void. Okay, so that means it got nothing. That's a bit strange to me. So I guess let's try something simpler to see why this is maybe being a little uncooperative. We'll just have it return a number. Return type, and then number. We should get number and then 5 in the print. Yeah, right here. Okay, so that works. Okay, so what am I doing wrong here? Maybe return print. I think that will give us a null again. Yeah, because return has no value, or no return value. Okay, so so they're basically doing the same thing, except they're doing a separate syntax without parenthesis. I guess I'll try that out to make sure I'm not doing something weird. Okay, yeah, we're getting void. Okay, so I think an easy way to fix this will just be, say, return function print hello world end, and now we should get a function from this, which will work fine for us, and then we can figure out how come the print wasn't working later. So now if we return function call, okay, so we're still not getting hello world. Yeah, in this case, loaded definitely. Alright, well, debugging is good, so I'm not super annoyed yet, but I am getting a bit stumped because I had this working last night. Let's see. Yeah, I'm doing the same thing here. Okay, well, maybe something's just weird with the print. So if I return a 6 from this function, it should get another number. Enter return. Let's see if it'll give us a 6 from that. And if so, we'll just go on. Okay, so yes, I guess, I don't know, maybe there's a bug in the newest Moonsharp. Oh, actually, I think the problem is that maybe I set that option after I already created the script. That could be the problem. So let's try it one more time. Say print hello world. Okay, I'm pretty sure that was what was going on here actually. Yeah, there we go. Alright, so sorry about that. That was a silly problem, but I guess that's the kind of things that you can run into. So we created the script before I set this default option, so obviously the script did not have this debug print option set. But now you know how to fix that problem if you encounter it as well. Okay, so now we're going to load a Lua file, so let's create one very quickly. Alright, let's make another folder in here. And show and explore. So let's just make a new text document. Okay, this will be test script. Okay, oh, and actually you want to put this in streaming assets. And this is another special folder in Unity. Streaming assets you can use for any files that Unity will want to load at runtime. And Unity will include this within your builds. But they also put it separate from the executable so that they can be replaced and edited by the users. So it's a really good place to put like mods, for example, and also Lua scripts. Okay, so we'll have, let's just keep this simple. Serialized field, and we'll have a simple field here that we can ask to load this file. So we're done with all that. Okay, so private void load file, and then we'll have the file name. Okay, so this file path will be path, which is something built into C#, and it just helps you combine file paths in a way that works with the operating system. I found that in general Unity does not really care if you put forward or backslashes, but I think it's still a good idea to use this combine. And so you can use the application streaming assets path, which is basically just the path to this streaming assets folder. And then we can put load file. Oh, we'd actually want the file name. Okay, and there's two ways you can do this. You can either, in the script environment, you can tell it to run or do file, but this doesn't really give you much control. So, I mean, it's fine, but I'd rather use my own file stream. Okay, so stream reader stream equals new. Actually, you don't even have to use a stream reader. I think you can just do buffered stream and the new file stream. And this will open the file for us. So we have the file path, file access, read, and file mode open. Except, oh yeah, these, I think I have the argument shuffled. Okay, and if you've never worked with operating system files before, this file stream will just open the file at this file path, and that's what the file mode means. It'll only open one, so it'll throw an error if the file does not exist. And then file access means that we just want to read the file, we won't be writing to it. And this using keyword just means that C# will automatically dispose your stream for you when you exit this block. So now we can do environment, do stream, And then that's all for that, basically. So let's go ahead and create a simple file. Should leave this open. And I use a program called Notepad++ for Lua scripting, but you might, pretty much any text editor works fine. You could do it in Visual Studio, but it doesn't have Lua support built in. So basically we're just going to print hello world again. Okay, so let's see, we want it to load the test script.lua. And oh, okay, so what I forgot to do is I need to call the load file function right here. Oops, it's lowercase l. Okay, and then we got hello world. And if you look here, you can see it's pretty big call stack, but basically we've been going through Moonsharp and then it calls our print function. So let's see. So we loaded a file now. So now we want to be able to set the text right here. So in order to get Lua to interface with Unity, it's actually pretty simple. Let's create another class, and this will be, I guess we'll just call it Lua commands on this object. Okay, so this will kind of be the interface between the Lua scripts and Unity. There are a couple ways you can do it. I think for set text especially, it'd be easier just to use a function. So let's see. Let's have private, oh not private, I'll need to be public. Static void set text, and then we'll have string text. And we'll need to have the UI text object. Okay, and we want to use the Unity Engine UI. And basically, is that, can't you set the text from here? I'm pretty sure. Is that not the right object? No, that is correct. Text.text. Why is it not showing up? Oh, obviously because these are both spelled the same, so the compiler thinks I'm speaking about this string. So yeah, I need to change this to, I guess, UI text. And this will be text string, to avoid confusion. So UI text dot text equals text string. Oh, and of course this is a static function, but this is not a static object, so we need to use what's called the singleton design pattern. So basically we'll have a private static Lua commands instance object, and then on awake, which Unity will call right when this object is loaded. We can set instance to this instance, and that way static objects will have a reference to an actual instance of this Lua commands. So I hope that makes sense. If anybody's confused, feel free to ask. Okay, and then here on the Lua, we need to add that object, that function, to the script environment. You can do that by getting this globals hash in the environment. And so we'll name this, how about set text equals Lua commands set text. Not convert to, oh, I think you maybe have to cast this like this. Cannot convert type method. Should be able to. Actually, it's this action, isn't it? Yeah, okay. So action just defines a type of function. Basically, it's any function without a return type and then this string argument, which is exactly what set text is. And I think C# just wants you to be careful whenever you try to set a function like that, that you have to explicitly cast it. So, but now it's not complaining, so let's see if it will work. And then we need to move back over to our script, and we can just call set text. Let's see, I'm a Lua script. And let's see if this shows up. I also need to add the Lua commands object here and give it a reference to the text. And there, I'm a Lua script, so everything ran correctly. Okay, you can see, well, I don't like that the font is still not pixel perfect. I'm not exactly sure why that is happening, because I set pixel perfect here. But that's not the focus of this stream today, so I won't spend too much time on it. It's line by. Okay, that actually helped. Okay, so you click align by geometry, and I guess that will make sure that everything's aligned by the actual text mesh. Oh, well, no, it didn't. It's still kind of blurry. Oh no, we don't want that. Oh well, we can maybe work on it some more if I have extra time. Okay, so what's next on the to-do list? Okay, so coroutines. Coroutines, they kind of work almost exactly like coroutines do in Unity if you're used to it. Coroutines are kind of like a separate function that you can call in Unity that you can yield in the middle. So like this, let's see. So how you would write it in Unity is private I enumerable example coroutine. Okay, so let's say debug log frame 1. Okay, so time frame count. And then if we call yield, oops, I forgot the semicolon. Yield return 1, which will wait 1 frame. And then we can, if we call this again, we can see that 1 frame will have passed in between. So why is it, oh, it's not IEnumerable, it's IEnumerator. And to execute this function just to show what a coroutine looks like, you can just call start coroutine. And that should show up down here in Unity. Okay, and we can see that the frames did one frame executed in between these codes, even though it was all one function. That's kind of what we'll be doing in Unity, except the first frame we would, in Lua, the first frame we would set some text, and then we'd want to wait for input before we set the next slide. So that's what we'll be using Lua coroutines for. Okay, so we're done with this. Okay, so in order to get this to work, we need to make sure these scripts return a function, so we can just say, we don't even have to type return in Lua. Okay, so then we call coroutine yield, and then we'll set text second slide. Okay, so this is the basics of how you do it. Let's go ahead and run it and make sure that there's no syntax errors. Okay, there was one. Unexpected symbol near. That's not what it. Yeah, if you double click on it, it doesn't actually take you to your error, of course. Let's see, what line? Okay, so it's not going to tell me the line in the Lua code. That's because we probably need better error handling. Okay, so we'll set up a try catch here, and this is just to get any exceptions that happen when we open this file. So syntax error exception is what we really want here. So debug log error exception dot, what is it, message. Okay, decorated message is what you want, because it will give you the error and the line number in Unity that the error happened on. So let's try this again and see if it works better. Yeah, so it says unexpected error near open parentheses and line 8. Okay, so the line number actually does not match up with what I was expecting. But I think it's because you don't need to have parentheses around yield, maybe. Let's try it again and see. Okay, no, that didn't make any difference. Okay, so maybe I did something a little wrong there. Let's look. Okay, no, I did type it right. Okay, in Lua you don't have to have semicolons, so I don't think that's the problem. Yeah, this is getting into some complicated stuff. so it's still throwing an error. And it says at line 8 through 9, but there's not even a parenthesis there. And everything is closed. Okay, so let's just comment stuff out and see where the error is coming from. Okay, so it actually wasn't the coroutine. Maybe it was actually, is there something wrong with my function that I wrote? Maybe I do need to have this return in main sharp. I'm pretty sure in normal Lua you don't, but let's just try it out. Okay, yeah, that was it, I think. Okay, so good, we're learning things. Okay, so now no errors. Okay, so now we got the function, so dynamic value, this will be the return from this script. Let's do it this way actually. Return equals dynamic value nil. Okay, and then we'll do if return dot type is a function. Because if it's not a function, then we don't want to run it, obviously. Okay, and how it works is we call environment, let's see, coroutine, and then we just pass it the function. Let's see, so we actually need to get a reference to the coroutine. And then we can just do while true. Okay, well, this will keep on calling the coroutine forever, which is probably okay. I forget. Okay, so we can actually just use a normal for each loop and it will exit. Is there just... I actually just want to do something like this, but then when the coroutine yields us nothing like an end coroutine, then we would exit out. Maybe that is how it works. Okay, so here we can see that, yeah, it'll keep on yielding, but then when x is greater than 5, then it just returns the last number. So that exits the coroutine, and I guess... So I'm not sure if that will actually work for us. Okay, well, we can actually, let's just see what happens. So while true, okay, so dynamic value equals coroutine dot resume. So this will be the coroutine yield. Where is the resume? Okay, so I have to cast the dynamic value to a coroutine, that's fine. won't let me do that. Oh, okay, so here, this is something you might run into. There's a coroutine class and main sharp and unity. So you have to make sure that it's unambiguous for the compiler. You can just right click and then it'll say quick actions, then you just pick the class you actually wanted, which we want the main sharp coroutine, not the unity coroutine. Okay, so if coroutine yield type, is there an, there might just be an end here. That's what how I thought it worked. Okay, I guess that's not how it works. Maybe we can tell if the coroutine is done by something in here. Coroutine state. Okay, so this is what we want. So if coroutine state is dead, then we'll want to break out of this. But just for debugging, let's go ahead and debug the coroutine state just to see what it's at. And in order to prevent an infinite loop, I'm actually going to just say int I equals 0 and as is less than 1000. So I mean it'll basically run forever, but if we have a problem and it doesn't break, we won't hang Unity. It would be great to do on stream for sure. Okay, so let's see how this works. Okay, and it worked perfectly. We have the second slide, and first one was suspended, then dead, and then exited. So that's just what I wanted. But obviously this isn't going to be what we actually want to do because there's no input. So do private coroutine. This will be the active coroutine. And again, it's confused. We want to use main sharp. Okay, so public void. Let's do it. What should we call it? How about advanced dialog? Or maybe just advanced script would be better. So here we basically just copy this out. And then if coroutine state equals dead, then we debug log dialog complete. And then we do something else here, but it's the active coroutine does not equal null, just to catch errors. Okay, so now after we load file, that's all done. So we want to advance the script. So now if we press play, it'll, I think it should say, hi, I'm a Lua script, or whatever I wrote for the first slide. Yeah. But the coroutine is still waiting for us to tell it to advance, so all we have to do is make some kind of input object. Okay, object create empty. Okay, so let's just, this will just be, I don't know, advance input. This will be pretty simple, really. So if input get key down. Okay, I forget. So in Unity you can use the Unity's default input, which will be good enough for us today. If it'll load. So we have submit is what I was looking for. And it's set to return or a button. Also enter and space. Enter and return are the same thing, but whatever. So on the submit key, we would want to call the Lua environment to advance the coroutine. Oh, and this get key down, it's a little confusing. If you just want to see if a key is pressed, you just call get key. But get key down actually tells you the very first frame that a key is pressed. So it's useful for things like this. So Lua environment. And then on the start, we'll get this class. So you can say find object of type Lua environment, and this will look in the Unity scene for the Lua object. And then we could just call Lua advanced script. Okay, and then if I press enter, oh, I didn't add the component here. So let's see, what did I call it? I guess I'll just look here. Advanced input, add it to that object. Oh, because I did get key down, I actually need to do get button down. Surprised it didn't throw an error because I put a string there. The difference between the get key down and get button down is get button gets one of those input settings from here, or get key gets like an actual key. Okay, so now I just press space and it proceeded. Okay, and I can keep on pressing space. Nothing's happening, but that's because we reached the end of the coroutine. And we got the dialog complete. So I guess we can put a little debug here. Log dialog, or let's say no active dialog. So if I play it again and I keep spamming space bar, we should get a no active dialog. Okay, so that was relatively simple. So now we want to be able to get data from Unity in Lua. And we already kind of did that with setting this global, but we'll actually create an extra class here that will be just for Lua to call. So this will just be a normal class. Let's call it, I don't know, I guess game state. Okay, we won't have any namespace. Okay, public string. I guess this will just be, for now we'll just have a player name. And get and set private player name. Okay, we'll want to set that some other way. Oh, I need to have a string. Okay, so right now you might not want Lua to be able to set the player name, so you can hide this setter here by giving it an attribute. So moon sharp hidden, which means that if moon sharp tries to access this object, it can't set the player name because we put moonsharp hidden before the set function right there. Okay, so if we look here, sharing objects is the right. So we can use moonsharp user data. There's a couple ways that you can register a class to be usable in moonsharp. One way is to put this attribute above a class and then call the, what is it? I think it's moonsharp build. Yeah, user data register assembly. Which we'll do that here. Again, before you actually create the script, we'll run into the same problem I did with setting the debug print. And what this will do is it will register this GameState class as usable in Lua. If you want a bit more control, there is another way. You can just call the user data create a new class specifically. Or user data register type, my class is what I was looking for. Which, I mean, that works fine too. But how we'll do it here. So we'll have private game state, so Lua game state, and let's make this available for other classes to read. And then we'll need to set this into the global environment. So we can just call this state equals user data create new game state. Okay, let's just try this now to make sure everything works fine. Okay, and no errors, which is all we could hope for right now. Okay, but actually I need to, we don't want to create a new game state here and then not have a handle for it in Lua, so, and then we put that there. So if you're not used to Lua, a user data is a type of Lua variable that just basically holds something from some other language. In this case it's C#. And so you just, in moonsharp you just call this user data create to create the Lua variable for this C# object. It sounds more complicated than it actually is. Okay, so let's actually try this. So state.playerName. Okay, and in Lua this double dot is string concatenation, which basically joins two strings together. I think this is capital. So that's basically all we have to do, and now whatever we put in this player name variable in Unity will actually show up in the script. So let's go ahead and create a class. You can just call it the set player name. This is actually going to be a mono behavior. So using Unity engine, mono behavior. Okay, so serialized field, and then we'll have private string player name, and then on, I guess we have to do it on awake because we need to do it before the Lua function is loaded. I mean, there's other ways to do that, but this is okay for us. Except, okay, so I think we need to wait a frame before we load the file so that everything can get set up. So we can do I enumerable. And then again, we'll just wait a frame here. We already explained coroutines in Unity. So now this starts and then waits one frame and then it will load the file. Okay, so in this we'll have an awake function here, and we'll just create the game state here so that it'll be ready for anybody to set values. Okay, so all we have to do is get component Lua environment, so game state player name equals player name. So now if I add this object to the Lua commands, let's call it Ned, that's fine. So let's see if this works correctly. Okay, so we got an error. Oh, that's because I used get component, not find object of type. Get component only works if they're on the same object here in Unity. Okay, so I guess I thought start would automatically create it seems like Unity doesn't automatically create a coroutine, so let's do it like this. So we set up, and then in our start, we'll just call start coroutine setup. Oh, or is it because I made it enumerable and it should be a numerator? I always get that mixed up. I think I did that last time as well. Okay, yeah, so now it loaded the script, and yeah, it says hi Ned, I'm Lua script. So you can see Lua got the value that we had in the set player name and actually placed it into the text. So the reason that we want to do that is we'll use it for branching dialogue. Because how it will work is something like this. So we'll yield, and then we can have like if, I don't know, state button selected is 1, then we could do one thing. Else if, oh no, just be else. Then we can do set text, other option, and then we'll have something like set, or I don't know, show buttons. Hello. And I don't know, goodbye. Something like that. So obviously we need to create this function in Unity to show buttons, and then we need to put this button selected in the state. So let's, we have 45 minutes, that should be plenty of time for this. Okay, so I'm going to copy this object, and this will be button 1. Okay, let's move it so you can see what I'm doing. So obviously we're going to want it to be a lot smaller. Half of 512 is 256, so let's go a little bit. How about 212 in height? Okay, that's too small for the text. These will be kind of big buttons, it's okay. Is that tilt? That's still too small for the text, isn't it? Okay, so let's try 90. 96. Okay, it does not need to be that big. Okay, so we shrink it down manually. Okay, it seems like it's got to be 86 before it disappears. Okay, well, it's not gonna look the best, but that's okay. So if we pull this over here, this would be button 2. Alright, so let's move around some of these values. Again, it doesn't really have to be perfect, but I want it to look sort of nice. So half of 212 is... That's not how it would work, actually. Okay, I'm spinning too long on this. How come the height... It seems like there's more room in between here than there, but they have the same height. Oh no, they don't. This is 8 and the other one's 5. Okay. Okay, well that's good enough. Okay, so now we have 2 buttons, and we need to add the button component. And this will allow us to send an event to some other object whenever we click on the button. So I guess we'll add it to this input. This will be a mono behavior. So button handler. So this will actually be pretty simple. We'll have public void button clicked index, and we can see if we show it or add it to this object from buttons, we can register it to receive clicks by adding the input file here. And then the function would be button handler, what is it, button clicked, and this will be 0. And then button 2 will do the same thing. And this will be index 1, because we hit the second button. We should change this text. Let's see. Okay, so I'm going to just test these buttons out. Debug log button clicked plus index. And let's see. Unexpected. Oh, right. It's going to complain because we have not implemented all this stuff yet. What line was that at? Chunk line 9. Oh, I forgot the if then. Yeah, and Lua, you have to, well, this is the syntax for an if statement, so that's what it was complaining about. But it will actually, well, we can see when I press play now, it's going to give me a script runtime exception because it tried to call a nil value. That actually brings up a good point. We need to have this exception catching here when we resume the coroutine. So I guess I'll add that real quick so we can have better error handling. So catch, script, runtime exception, and then we just debug, log, error, exception, decorated message. Actually, this should go in here, and then we'll just clear the coroutine. We can see if I do this now, it throws an error, and then if I press space, it won't let us proceed through the coroutine because there is an error. But that's not what I wanted to test. I wanted to test the buttons. Yeah, and so they button click 0 and 1. Perfect. Okay, so now we need, in the game state, we need to do something like the player name except for a button clicked. Or what did I call it? Button selected. So private int button selected, and then we want moon sharp hidden set button selected equals value. Okay, now here's one confusing thing about Lua and C#. If you've ever worked in C# or any C language, you know that, for example, if I typed something like this, int array equals new int 0, 1, 2. That's going to be a little confusing. Let's do 4, 5, 6. Then we know that array 0 is 4. But in Lua, the same type of thing, array 1 is 4. So you've got to be careful whenever you work with arrays between, or basically any kind of index between Lua and C# because they start differently. And this is important to us because this button handler we'll want to get the game state, so private Lua environment and void start. Oops. Lua equals find object of type, and then we'll have Lua game state button selected equals index plus 1. So that, because if the first button in Unity will be index 0, but Lua will want to think of that as index 1, so you just have to add this 1 to it. So always try to keep that in mind. Okay, now we need to create this show buttons function, which you can go to Lua commands, and text, this would be button 1 text and button 2 text. Okay, so show buttons. So button 1 text string, button 2 text string. Grab the type on the second one. Okay, so we have the text, but we also need to get the actual object. So let's make this a little easier on ourselves. And this be game object button parent So whenever show buttons is called, then we first will set button, to instance dot button one text equals button one text string. Same thing here. And then we'll want to set the button parent game object active equals true. Oh, right, you don't set it like that, you actually call the set active class, or function, so if I can type true. And this will just make sure that this button is visible. So also on this advanced input, actually it wouldn't happen here. So this is a little interesting because we don't want submit to do anything if any buttons are visible. So let's see. Let's create another class here. I guess we could actually just do it in the button handler. That's fine. Okay, so let's move everything out of the Lua commands into the button handler. And we'll copy this. Okay, so we don't need an instance anymore. And then in Lua commands, instead of getting the text, we'll just get button handler. And then on start, equals find object of type. Okay, so now we'll want to have public bool are buttons visible. Okay, we can just call button parent game object active. Oh, we gotta return that. Okay, and we're supposed to use active self, which means it says object active itself, whereas the difference is, okay, I'll show you. Here, active self is true, and then if I click this off, then active self is false. But if I deactivate the whole canvas, active self would still be true for the dialog box, even though it's technically not active because the parent is inactive. So that's the difference between that. Okay, and so now this advanced input needs to get this button handler class. Buttons. And we can actually just use the get component here. Okay, so if buttons are buttons visible is false and input get button down, then we want to advance the script. Otherwise, we want to advance the script here and then hide the buttons. We gotta do that before we advance the script. Set active false. Okay. So now we got to. Okay, there's not. Oh, I didn't update this yet. So we just have to change this to call. We should rename this to buttons. So buttons. Oh yeah, instance buttons show buttons. Okay, and then just delete that because we moved all that code into the show buttons function. And then last but not least, in the Lua environment, we need to add that function to the globals. Okay, and this is now an action string because it has 2 arguments. Okay, so is that, I think everything's set up. Oh, except we need to add the button parent and things here. Okay, so let's see. I just want to add. Okay, well, I don't want an image. All I want is just a rect transform, and then parent the buttons to that. Okay, so now here I can add the text and the button parent. Okay, and then we also should hide the buttons right away. So button parent, set active false. Okay. So let's see. And then if I press hello, okay, we get an error. Attempt to call a number value. Oh, okay, I think I know what I did. Yeah, this button selected is just a number, not a function. Okay, so let's try it again. So we got the second slide, and then if I click the second button, we should get other option. Okay, so the last thing we have to do is saving and reading flags. Alright, which just be another thing in the game state. Because we'll have a dictionary string. So what would be the value? This can be used like for a more complicated branching dialog, where earlier if you set a flag, then you can try to read that back and I guess react appropriately. So I guess we'll do a string, and then we'll have public string get flag. I guess a flag technically would just be like a hash set, because they'll either true or false. So let's see. Yeah. String. And then we just return flags contains a specific one. And then we'll have a moonsharp hidden object to set the flag. Oh no, this isn't hidden. Moonsharp needs to be able to do this as well, or Lua. String flag. Set. Okay, so if set, then flags add. Otherwise, we'd remove. So that's pretty much all we have to do here. Since we have another object now, we need to instantiate it here. But this is actually an important point. You always should create an empty constructor like this and then type moonsharp hidden. I'm glad I remembered to do that, because otherwise moonsharp could create more instances of this game state, which you might not want it to be able to do. And I'll just clean this up by putting all the variables at the top. Okay. And another thing, just while I'm thinking about it, if you let the game run scripts, you kind of need to make sure that it can't harm your operating system since you don't have control over those scripts anymore. And that's called sandboxing. And basically what you want to do, you can select from various modules here that you will have that will let mods use. And I would pretty much allow you to use, I would say the soft sandbox is the safest. You don't want to have this default, I don't think, because then you could do something like operating system exit, which will close the program, and read files, which will let you be able to delete files. So, and how you do that is really simple. All you do is, when you create a script, you pass it core modules and then whatever you want. So, soft sandbox is what we want. Which lets you be able to do basically everything in Lua except mess with operating and file systems. So if you don't want a Lua script to be able to call a coroutine, then you might not want soft sandbox, but it works fine for us. Okay, so anyway, after that detour. Okay, so now we can set and hide flags. We don't even have to do anything else in Unity. So I guess we'll just test it. Obviously we'll know it will work, but... Okay, so let's say state set, okay, flag, let's call it, I guess we'll just say first button, and we'll set it to true, and if state get flag first button, then we'll have this third option, set text flag was set. Obviously this is kind of redundant because you could basically just put this text here after yield and everything would be fine, but we're just trying to test this flag option. Okay, there we go. So hello, second slide and then space, flag was set. Okay, now it's done. So if I type the second button, or press the second button, let's see if that still comes up. No, so it's, you see it's done now. Now of course that was a little, it's not optimal because basically there's this slide that requires an extra button press, but nothing happens if the first button flag was not set. So you probably wouldn't want to do that in a final game, but it's okay for us just to test it. Okay, so you can imagine these branching dialogues could probably get pretty complicated pretty quickly. So I think it might be nice if we could separate this into different functions. Unfortunately, with a coroutine, you can't do something like this. Let's see. We have to put this, let's call this local main equals function, and then we'll return main here. And then local hello branch equals function. Unfortunately, you can't say yield return wait, that's not coroutine yield right here, because the coroutine was for this function, so if you enter another function, coroutine doesn't know where to return to. So how we'll fix that is we'll actually, let's move this here, and then we'll just return hello branch. Or we'd yield it actually. And so how this will work in our game, I think, is that it will yield this function, and then our script manager will treat this as the active function, and then when it is finished, we'll go back to the main function. If that makes sense. I guess the best way would be to show it. So instead of having just one active coroutine, we'll have a stack of them. So we'll just call this coroutine stack. Active, we don't need that because we can just get the top of the stack. Okay, so we just say coroutine push. Okay, and the push function just puts this object on the top of the stack. I don't know why they just didn't call it add, but this is the convention. Okay, so I need to create the stack here. Well, I remember. Okay, so if coroutine stack count is greater than 0, which means if there's anything in the stack, then so we zoom the top of the coroutine stack, and the peak object just gets what's on top but does not remove it from the stack. Which I guess we should get it right here, because we're going to need to access it again. Again, it's confused between Unity and Moonsharp. Okay, so active. And then if active state is dead, then we would call coroutine stack pop, and that removes the object from the top of the stack, because we're basically done with this coroutine. But now we actually need to get a dynamic value from here, and if return function, if return type equals function, then we want to add this to the top of the coroutine stack, equals environment, create coroutine, return dot coroutine. That's not what it did. We need to push it on top of the stack. Okay. And then if active is dead, then okay, so we actually have to do this backwards. Yeah, because if the active is dead, then we pop it off the stack, but then if it returned a function, then we'd add it back on. Okay, and if there's a runtime exception, then we'd actually just clear the whole stack. Okay, so let's see how this works. I have a feeling it's might be a little clunky. Okay, yeah, so let's just try it out. So I click hello. Okay, yeah, and it didn't actually execute the coroutine, which is probably not what we want. Okay, so let's see. Did it not actually do anything? Okay, so I thought it would have yielded the hello branch, but it seems like this never ran. Oh, because I need to put this function before the main, because when we execute this, hello branch is null. That's just the way Lua works. Basically, if you want to use a local variable, you have to make sure it's defined before the main, before where you actually use it. It's a little different than C# in that way. Okay, yeah, now it's second slide. Now flag was set. So I had to press enter a bunch of extra times. So it should actually be, let's call it coroutine dead. I guess it kind of depends on how you want it to work. So button click 0. But now I have to press space again for it to actually update the frames. And now I had to press space again. So yeah, it's not... Maybe we can clean this up. So the best, or the way to clean this up to have it work with our current system is to do something like this. Put the set text first and then the coroutine yield. And then you move this yield into here. And then let's... So we'll just have a third slide here just to kind of show. And might as well do another coroutine yield here, just to test it further. Okay, last inner coroutine line. Okay, and we can also see that if we set the flag inside another function, then main will still be able to read it. It's kind of the point of the flags. So hello, and then it shows second slide right away. And third slide, last inner coroutine, and we see the coroutine is dead now. So when I press space again, it'll go straight to flag was set. So that's one way to get it to work. Another option would be when you yield a coroutine that the game would automatically start to run that function. I guess it just depends on how you want to do it. But this way is actually the most clear, I think, so I think I'll leave it for now. Alright, so we have about 15 more minutes. That was actually the end of the main tutorial. So I guess now we can maybe add some more bells and whistles. So what about if we had a portrait? So first we'll create interface image. Let's move it up here. Okay, and I created some portraits before. It's a simple little creature. So let's set native size. Okay, that's kind of big. maybe the dialog box. The dialog box is actually probably too big because we never use the whole entire size. Okay, let me put the portrait under here. And we want to anchor maybe to the top left. Okay, so X, and then we'll put our pivot on the bottom left, so 0 and 1. So let's put it 16. Okay, I guess this is 0 as well. Okay, so a little more, how about 48? Okay, and 150. Alright, so that's looking pretty good. So really all we have to do is add another object here, or another variable here to the game state to let us set a portrait. And let's actually create something here. So portrait handler. And we'll have an enumeration for the types of portraits. I have talk, surprised, and annoyed. Okay, so we'll need the Lua environment for sure. And then so let's get that in the start. Equals find object of type. And we'll also need this actual string, so I think it's UI. That's not what I wanted. Image. No, that's not it. Oh, so I wanted Unity engine. Sprite. Okay. Oops. So we want to animate this, so I think I could just call animator. And we'll want to create a new animation, so portrait. Down here. And now if we open up the animation file, or window, we can create a clip. So this will be talking. I guess let's call it portrait talking. Alright, and if I drag and drop a sprite here, will it automatically add it? Okay, it does. And then if we press play, we can see it loops through it. It's a little slow, but we can fix it up. So I want to create another for portrait surprised. Again, move it to 1 frame a second. And portrait annoyed. Okay, so that's pretty simple. And now if we open up the animator window, we can see that it already added animation states for each of them. So we can get rid of the portrait because that's redundant. Oops, I wanted to keep surprise. Alright. Okay, so now go back to the portrait controller. Let's create public void set portrait, and we'll pass a string. Okay, and you can use enumerations in Lua, but from my research, you have to turn each of these values into a user data, so it's almost better if you just use strings when you use enumerations in Lua. So we'll say portraits type equals, we'll just default to talk. I guess we actually default to none because there can be no portrait. Okay, and then we'll switch the portrait string to upper invariant just in case, to make it case insensitive. So talk. Okay, so type would be talk. Oops. So now you basically just have to translate different strings into the actual enumeration you want. And then annoyed. And then anything else. I guess we don't need a default because we set type, but if it's not one of these, then it would just be type none. So switch. We do this differently. If type is none, then image. We can actually, yeah, make this even simpler. Sprite game object set active type does not equal none. And then if type does not equal none here, we'll set animations. Switch type. Okay, so we need to get the animator from this image. Okay, and animator equals sprite get components. Okay, so if it's talk, then animator play. Oh, it's not playing with, it's not working with me here. Okay, break out of that. So we do the same thing for the other two. Surprised and annoyed. Okay, so and then right at the beginning we'll set what is the function? Set portrait to none, basically, just to hide it. Okay. I guess we don't actually need this Lua environment here, do we? Next will be the Lua commands that will actually get the portrait handler. That's not how you spell that. Is it? Oh, that's the A and I is backwards. I knew something was wrong. Then portrait equals find object of type portrait handler. Then we'll have another function like this, except it'll just be portrait type and then instance portrait set portrait. And I need to copy this right there. Okay, and then last thing I have to do is add another hook here into the global. Set portrait. Okay, so let's try it out. Okay, so set portrait talk. I don't need a semicolon. And if you say goodbye, he'll get surprised that you are so such bad manners. And then we'll just put annoyed here to test that out. Okay, Albert reference not set. Oh, I forgot to give the portrait handler. Actually, I forgot to even create the portrait handler, so let's do that now. And then it needs the portrait image. Let's clean this up. Okay, one other thing I want to do is in talking, I want this to loop faster, so let's set it to 4. Okay, so let's try it out now. Okay, you see it's on the talking, and then if I press hello, second slide, third slide, and then it gets annoyed. Okay, now the active dialogue is done. Okay, so now if I say goodbye, and now it gets surprised. Okay, now I notice it's saying invalid index, and I think it's because here this should be, well, talk is okay. I think I put the wrong text somewhere. So case talk, and we'll put talking as well. Yeah, and here it should be talking, not just talk. It worked okay because talking is a default animation, but that's why it was throwing this state could not be found error. So now it looks fine. Okay. So I think that's about it for today. If anybody has some last minute questions, I'd be happy to answer them, but I think I'll start wrapping up. Oh yeah, thanks everybody for coming by and watching. I hope you all enjoyed this. It's I really think using Unity and Lua or using Lua in Unity is very powerful, and for more than just branching dialogue, but this was just a simple solution I thought. But you can use it for pretty much anything. Anything that has to do with level design that you want to try and keep separate from your actual engine code. Because if you tried to, for instance, if we just tried to create these text boxes in C#, we would have to recompile our Unity game every time, which can get a bit time consuming. It's bothering me, it was off center. Alright, but so tomorrow I'm going to stream again at 10 Eastern. I'm going to be playing something for once instead of making a game. I haven't decided what yet, but I'm going to try and play some of my older games on my backlog and maybe look at how they're designed. And then, but Monday I'll be back to game development, and we'll be working on the main project, which is like a combination of Pokemon battle system on like a chess or Fire Emblem type board. So yeah, that one's pretty fun, and we'll actually be implementing Lua in that pretty soon, so that'll be a more complicated use of it. Alright, so I guess I'll end it here. Thanks everybody for coming by and watching. If you missed some of the stream and you want to catch it, I will put it up on YouTube in an hour or so. And I hope to see you in some other stream. Alright, bye-bye.